Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and welcome on this talk, which is all about what's going on with VMware and the impact we've seen as a company building an open source virtualization solution. So I'm Olivier, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Vates. I'm a former system administrator myself, and I'm using open source virtualization since almost 20 years now, so it's flying very fast. I'm obviously an open source advocate and also an entrepreneur. I have a personal blog. If you wonder about my vision regarding open source, feel free to take a look. There's only a few blog posts, but that might be interesting if you are into open source. So what is Vates? So Vates is a French company that I co-founded back in 2012 with two other associates. The website is vates.tech. We have now two branches, one in the US, one in Italy, and we can tell that we are an ISV, so basically independent software vendor, and we are specialized in open source virtualization. How we make money, it's rather simple. We are selling the expertise on the software we are building because clearly as it's fully open source, we are not selling the right to use it. But as we are the main contributor to it, the expertise, not just support, but also extra services on top of it, is the way we make money. So it could be a question regarding the hardware, the network, how to optimize what you have, and so on. So that's the way we are making money at Vates. We have some recognition, even if Vates is not new. Our stack is now more visible than before. We are in the Gartner Market Virtualization Guide, and we are fully independent and fully owned. So we are not a part of whatever group on top of us. Before talking about the VMware thing, I wanted just to give you an idea on what is the stack. So I won't go into let's say all the details, but just basically what it is. So it's running, we'll see better with that. So you have the virtualization platform called XCP-ng. So the core engine is Zen, the hypervisor, just on top of the hardware. We have an embedded small UI directly inside XCP, and on top we have storage hyperconvergence, Zen Orchestra, which is like the central orchestration platform doing many kind of different backup you can imagine to S3, file level restore, replication, and so on and so on. And you can also, if you want, use CloudStack on top of XCP-ng. And in fact, on the users we have using, in general, both. They're using Zen Orchestra for, let's say, regular non-large cloud deployments, and CloudStack for things that are more advanced. So it's like, synergies between the two. And obviously, we have some more modern features like Terraform, Packer, providers, and so on. And it is fully open source. So all of that is the Vates virtualization and management stack, Vates VMS. And, well, if you know VMware, somehow it's not that different, at least in terms of architecture, because you can see that for some main components, it's relatively similar. And you will see that is important for what's coming then. So that's for the context. So now the goal of my talk today was try to answer some questions you might have, and also to give you a perspective, a unique perspective we have in that market of the, let's say, virtualization in general, more like server virtualization to be precise. So is it true there's a VMware exodus? Because obviously Broadcom will tell you otherwise. Some people are maybe exaggerating, you don't know. And if it is, why? What are the reasons? And sometimes it's not that obvious. And also why we might be one of the right company to be able to witness this, the reasons why. I think it's important to understand. Is it an opportunity for all of us, and I mean not just Vates as a company, but the entire open source ecosystem? And talking about open source, what is the role of working in an open source way in that context? So from our perspective, yes, there is an exodus on VMware. Yes, because in the last 1 year and a half, 100% of our customers are coming from VMware. In a way that we are not just a company doing open source virtualization, we are a company helping people migrating from VMware to our platform. So this requires some knowledge on the platform itself, so we learn many things about VMware. And the shift is not just, as you can imagine, maybe small customers or small infrastructure. It's growing by having rather large company being interested to make the switch. To give you another magnitude, Gartner is saying like 40% of the VMware users might switch to an alternative platform. So this is really interesting, and we are witnessing that firsthand. What's interesting too is what's happening right now is the US market is driving this trend, and I mean by far. It's like we are doing right now around 2/3 of our revenue just in the US. There is potential reasons, we'll discuss that a bit later, but we really hope that's a kind of a precursor on what's going on then in Europe. And the actual results, I mean the real thing that proves that it works is we are growing pretty fast at Vates. We were almost 20 full-time equivalent people working at or for Vates 2 years ago. Now we're reaching 70 people, and I think next year we'll reach 100 people mark. So it is working, there is an exodus, and this is driving growth for our company. And just keep in mind, we are not Nutanix or Microsoft or those very large companies. So if we are witnessing that at a really interesting rate, it means there's a real exodus. So the why, with a nice coffin on top. Sure, there's the pricing thing. It is visible and everyone is aware about that, but more than this, it's like feeling betrayed. Those VMware users are kind of using it for maybe the last 20 years, and then they lost confidence about not VMware itself, but Broadcom acquiring it. So the future is unclear. The brutal decision made many partners, in a bad spot, and when we are discussing with those users, we really are seeing this. And to give you, that's the 5 stage of grief. And in the US, they are already at the 5th stage, because I remember when we heard about the initial will from, Broadcom to acquire VMware, our US users, that were already like half of our revenue, were telling us, we know what will happen. They were like, at some point, things will completely explode in the air. And I remember that 1 year ago, discussing with people in Europe during conferences and so on, they were there. I just had a discussion with my rep at VMware. He told me nothing will change and so on. Right now, we are around here and here, okay, in Europe. We've seen that because there's, especially in France, where we know a bit well the market, you have a lot of, IT manager really angry against it and even trying to sue Broadcom about you change the rule, that it's not fair, and so on and so on. So that explains for us a bit the lag there is between the adoption of our solution as an alternative in the US versus the Europe. But the trend is here. One way to see that also is we are speaking French a lot more as a French company, which is funny, since this year than any previous years, because we are seeing companies, French companies and European companies, being interested to seek for an alternative. So when we ask our users and your customers why they made the choice, because we need to understand why they are selecting the platform. And frankly, that was kind of a surprise to me to hear the first thing is because it works. And I think that's a lesson that maybe very large companies like Nutanix, Microsoft, and so on has really great marketing, and you have the impression that everything is working out of the box without any problem and so on. It seems it's not that easy, and the stability and the fact that it's reliable is really crucial for people to make the migration. The second argument that we have is the leap between VMware and something else might be huge. And we have the chance, because the platform is using a technology that were around almost at the same time at VMware, that is not that far in terms of architecture. And again, remember you a few slides, I told you that it's not that far, and in fact, that's a true plus for people to make the leap of faith because it's not too far. And surprisingly, pricing is not the main driver to adopt our solution. Sure, we are cheaper, like almost everyone else, but again, it's not maybe the most important thing. The number 4 might be number 1 or number 2, depending on the type of customers we have, because the platform is based on Zen, which is probably one of the best open source projects regarding the security process and how to, getting to treat a CVE and things like this. And for like government, let's say banking, healthcare, and so on, the fact that security is really one of the main assets of the platform is really important. The other one is people like to have one person to discuss with and not maybe many vendors. So the fact we made all our product into one offer is more simple, and they have to avoid talking to many different vendors. We have a real use case that demonstrates that, with Lambert, as we integrate their technology into our stack. And when people are using hyperconvergence, they don't have to purchase it outside. They just get the bundle, and then we deal with the first level support, let's say, and then if there is a higher problem, then we go to talk to Lambert. So this kind of integration, to have one, let's say, entity to talk about, is also one reason of the adoption. And sadly, to me, the fact that it's open source doesn't matter that much. That's one lesson, but it's important. But in the end, we are, so the result is here. So that's great, that's a pretty good success, but I think we can go even further, and the example I had with Lambert is one that is interesting, but I think we could even go beyond that. Again, working in an ecosystem together with the companies working around CloudStack that could, again, run on top of a solution, might help people using VMware to see what are the options and if there is vendors working together to provide those solutions. So cooperation is really important, and we want to share that success. So it means not just software vendors. Again, there's classical example, could be hardware vendors that we partner with, having the solution pre-installed on the machines. But it's also service providers to understand and to know the value of having a stack that could be a true alternative. So there is, in Europe, a huge amount of different expertise, like in Spain, Poland, Austria. So it's more about trying to really get this kind of expertise and try to at least provide a clear kind of offers that people could choose. Because if it's too fragmented, it's hard for people coming from a very big vendor to identify which one is the best and how you can plug components together and so on. But this is also interesting, the fact that where VMware is having all those problems, it won't be a winner takes all. It won't be like Nutanix or Microsoft getting 80% of, let's say, the cake that VMware left or Broadcom left. It will be fragmented, meaning that every solution has its chance. Now you need to raise to, let's say, a critical mass where you're relevant enough to have third-party vendors to build on top of your platform. So for example, now we have managed, even if we have backups and everything, we have Veeam that is interested to build, backup solution with our API. And 1 year ago, that wouldn't have been possible. So you need to have enough momentum to get those third-party vendors to adopt your solution and create even more, snowball effects, more interest into your solution. So that's why if you want to be relevant, it's better to work together. And that's why that's one of the main messages I have today. If we want to stay relevant against those big players, we need to work together. So about those big players. So the ones that we are seeing the most, and maybe we have some bias with the US as it's our bigger market, but that's what we're seeing. Basically, Nutanix is almost number 2. Or maybe Microsoft. But Microsoft, even if they recently announced that they are, in fact, interested about this, market left by Broadcom, they made announcements in that sense, in that way, really like a few days ago. So it is good news because it means there's really a market. If Microsoft is considering it, it is a big market. But all in all, Microsoft want to push you to the public cloud at some point. That's where the margin is for them, and they are really seeking for high margins. Nutanix raised the price pretty high recently because they've seen the opportunity clearly to get many, many customers from VMware. They are like, pretty huge company. But again, you don't know if the history can repeat with a company that is, VC-owned and so on, and fund-owned. And, well, Citrix is completely out of the game. They are really focusing on VDI. And RedHat/IBM is more on application orchestration, which is, a huge leap if you are only on legacy app or regular app in VMs. To go to application orchestration requires a lot of consulting, which IBM will be happy to provide, obviously. So what's the role of open source in this shift from VMware to other solution? An important thing to understand is it's easier for a company doing open source to make money because people coming from VMware aren't, I would say, even imagine to use a software without paying for having support. It's just, they cannot just imagine that. So right now at Vates, for example, we have really two components. We have our great community using it, everything for free and in a completely open source fashion, which is great. But all the commercial revenue is generated by those VMware users because what they want in the end is a product, not just a software. And it's really a product and services. So TAM is technical account manager. So our strategy is even to hire ex-VMware people working as technical account manager to work with us to feel like all those VMware users feel like home because they have a similar kind of service that they had previously. And well, sadly, they are not driven by the fact it is open source. But in the end, they are converted to open source without even really wanted it. They don't really care. So we focus on the results. We are migrating hundreds and hundreds of companies from proprietary software to open source, which is, the end goal, right, in the end. So what's next? What we want to do right now is obviously to continue to scale as a company, to deliver new features, service, partnerships, and so on. So as you've seen, we are growing rather fast, and as we are the three co-founder tech people, we're investing a lot in research and development because we know that the platform of tomorrow is made today. So we are really, really growing really fast in that, and hoping to get really nice, cool features coming in the following months and years as we are a really fast-paced release cycle. And that's the opportunity, I think, to go just beyond our own success, which is okay, We want to really create something bigger and ideally at the European level, even if, we are making most of our revenue in the US, and we are developing the US branch by having more salespeople there or even support, but the research and development is made in Europe. And there's, I think, the right time to try to find, all possibilities to have synergies and to increase that momentum together so everyone can have, let's say, a return on this success. We continue on our side not just to use open source because we are true open source believers, and it means we need to also contribute. And the other ambition on our side is to become one of the main contributors of the Zen hypervisor and the tool stack around. We have really exciting project by rustifying the tool stack, moving many interesting features and so on, even on the very long run game like porting on RISC-V, which is not in the data center tomorrow, but still we believe that it's where you succeed that you have to prepare what's next. And so that's by the way, as we're growing pretty fast, we are always seeking for people. So if you're interested, feel free to take a look on our website. We have a career page where we have something like 8 positions open, I think, right now. And we really hope, to get to that 100 people mark next year. And that's it for me today. If you have questions, go ahead.
Any questions from the audience?
Are you satisfied with
Are you satisfied with the amount of integration of XCP, NG, and CloudStack?
So we have, I think, around few % of our users running XCP and CloudStack. I think we could do better in many areas. I'm not a CloudStack expert, but I think there's really a segment where that makes sense in that extends the power of the platform by having something that scales between multiple data centers with very advanced ACLs, very advanced network management, and so on. So on those aspects, we probably like to get maybe, I don't know, quarterly meetings to discuss if there is any blocker on our side, if there is any blocker on CloudStack side, and maybe if we have like customer use cases that would be logical to go with CloudStack to see how we could answer them. So maybe also having some training on our end on exactly what is CloudStack in details, because right now I have, let's say, a product vision on it, but not the details. But we have customers and using both, and when we have a customer coming to us and said, I want a fully multi-tenant solution between my data centers and so on, we said, hey, you could use CloudStack on top of the solution. So it's probably trying to achieve, let's say, tangible actions to see what's needed in one way or another. In any case, on our side, we'll be happy to assist on whatever we can assist. We have like an alpha program where in general we tend to on GitHub to tell on the CloudStack people about working on the next release years before it's out, so you can test if it works and so on. So just improving the collaboration, at least on the minimal technical level, to be sure we are not overseeing anything, would be, I think, a good first step.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.